Welcome to Round 5, Magic Players Championship 2012. I'm Sheldon Menery alongside Zach Hill. We are bringing you all the action, which has already started. Brian Kibler on the left, David Ochoa on the right, and Celestial Colonnade from Kibler on turn 1, Step Links from Ochoa on his turn 1, setting the pace of the action.
Yeah, that's basically the opening you want from both of these decks. Kibler could afford to play the Colonnade at turn 1, doesn't need to spell snare anything by virtue of being on the draw. Step Links coming in for 4 points of damage right out the gates, and this Zoo deck can put a ton of pressure on you. Kibler wisely pathing to exile before taking 4 damage.
Alternately, not taking 4 damage at all, but going with the path to exile.
Right, and again, like, pathing on turn 1 is not exactly what you want to be doing against a deck with Snapcaster Mage, but you just can't afford to take that much damage.
So Ochoa, cracking his Misty Rainforest, is going to pull up, I would imagine, certainly not a basic land.
Well, I mean, he's, is this not for the, this is for the path to exile, correct?
Oh, certainly right, the path has to resolve.
Right. But I mean, you do bring up an interesting point, though, which is that it's one of the most important aspects of playing these Zoo decks is to sequence your mana base correctly, which is extremely hard because you only have 1 copy of each of these dual lands. A fact that Kibler's team is exploited by playing 4 copies of Tectonic Edge, which can turn on quicker than normal because of Path to Exile. And if you've got to make sure that you can cast Snapcaster Mage and Geist of Saint Traft and Lightning Helix while keeping Curd Ape and Loam Lion turned on, as 2/3s with a forest. This is a very hard puzzle to solve, and that's before you've even cast a spell. This is just anticipating how to cast your spells.
Okay, we see that Ochoa has gotten Steam Vents.
Done.
That Steam Vents complements his Temple Garden. Now, the deck is 5 colors, but the black is only for Lingering Souls out of the sideboard and Tribal Flames. So between Steam Vents and Temple Garden, Ochoa is able to cast all of his spells.
And during his draw step, Brian Kibler is going to flash in Vendilion Click. He's going to get the advantage of seeing his hand and maybe taking something good out of it.
Right, now Ochoa does have a pretty loaded hand. He's got a lot of burn spells that presumably he can use on the click whenever he wants. Also, he can flash those back with Snapcaster Mage. You have to imagine that Kibler's going to want to take one of those Geists of Saint Traft. Oh, but Ochoa has 2 of them, so taking one is not going to actually accomplish very much.
We see there on the screen, double Geist of Saint Traft, double Lightning Helix, Snapcaster Mage, and Misty Rainforest. So Brian Kibler's got a choice here.
Yeah, and this is really hard. I mean, I think you take Snapcaster Mage just because it's, 2 cards worth of value, and the card he's drawing is only 1. You don't want to take Geist of Saint Traft unless you have an answer for it, because why not strand the redundant copy in his hand? This is a really difficult choice for Kibler right now.
What do you take? Are you Snapcaster? Oh, Brian
no,
Kibler's gone
I guess
Geist.
He does.
We see Brian is one of the fastest hand shufflers there is. Really difficult to pick up the cards in his hand. And I did see what I thought was a Snapcaster of his own.
He does have one of his Snapcasters. I mean, I can see taking Geist so that if you draw your own Geist, you can have an answer. But right now, the Geist is going to put a pretty substantial clock on Kibler, especially in concert with those Lightning Helices.
It'll be your turn.
Helices?
Helices.
Helices? Yes. Is that the right?
That is the correct term. Sounds weird, though. It's like sphinges.
Sphinges. Need to make more cards with X's in them so we can confuse what their plurals are. All right, there is the Geist of Saint Traft from David Ochoa and the shuffle. Top-down view of his great hat to go with his great mustache.
I can't get enough of Ochoa's look for this event. Like the actual waxed mustache.
Yeah, he's got the nice curl at the end of it. It's not quite long to be one of those super curls yet.
I've made a Hunter S. Thompson comparison. I don't even know, to be honest with you. Kibler now representing Restoration Angel for the Geist does not actually have it. Is going to be taking a pretty big attack right now. He's able to play Snapcaster Mage to try and block the Geist to Saint Traff, but he knows Ochoa has Lightning Helix. Kibler has Spell Snare for the Helix. You know, even just sitting here talking about it, it's crazy to appreciate the breadth of interactions that are going on right now.
Quasali Pride Mage from David Ochoa, and that Exalted can be really, really important.
But he's walking right into the play of Spell Snare, Snapcaster Mage, Spell Snare for the Lightning Helix. But I guess he can put the Snapcaster Mage ability on the stack and before it resolve a Lightning Helix. Just crazy interactions that are taking place right now.
There's a lot of play in this game right now with 4 lands on either side.
Kibler, of course, has got to hope that this block happens, but there's no way Ochoa is going to allow that.
Well, and again, he knows that
Oh, he just had another Spell Snare in hand.
There we go.
I believe "how lucky" is the phrase.
Well, but I mean, he plays that knowing that's what he has in his hand. I mean, he knows Ochoa has the 2 Lightning Helixes. He knows that he has Snapcaster into the...
Oh, sure. Yeah, Kibler certainly knows exactly what's going on because the Vendilion click. Ochoa does not have that luxury, but still, he's got to be pretty upset about the second Spell Snare. Like, he top-decked the Quasali Pride Mage. He had to think he was looking pretty good there.
Okay, we do see Mana Leak in Brian Kibler's hand.
You got to appreciate the Tectonic Edge, I believe, on Steam Vents right now. Cuts him out of 2 whole colors, and he knows about Snapcaster Mage. Kibler, nevertheless, thinking long and hard about it. But yeah, Steam Vents has got to be the target here.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about players around the world watching these guys play. They play sometimes at a breakneck pace because I mean, they know these decks inside out, and I mean, these are the best of the best. You're watching at home, maybe don't play that this fast.
Right, yeah. And if you don't play that fast, you might have missed the third Geist to Saint Traff from Ochoa. Runs into the last card in Kibler's hand, which is a Mana Leak. The Zoo deck actually ahead on card advantage right now. Kibler furiously trying to draw into something. Ochoa, you know, only 4 lands. The rest of his cards spells. The Path to Exile really helped him out. On the other hand, it did give him the 4th land for Kibler's Tectonic Edge to become live. Now, Kibler right now did draw a Restoration Angel. He's got to hope that Ochoa doesn't have a sack land here to turn on the Step Links. And right now, Step Link's just an 0-1, not very many profitable attacks.
And there's a Restoration Angel at end of turn, which gets Path.
Yeah, now the Path to Exile on the Restoration Angel, really interesting here. Kibler and John were telling me during the deck tech, one of the reasons they played this deck is because of how powerful Celestial Colonnade is and how that allows them to take advantage of their opponent's paths to exile. That the extra land, you know, the 5th land from a lot of decks doesn't do a lot, but once the blue-white deck gets to 6, it's able to start activating Colonnade, so it gets to play Path to Exiles that are sort of vicariously much more powerful than the Path to Exiles coming out of their opponents.
We have report from one of the back tables. It seems as though Shuhei Nakamura, Hall of Famer, has gone up 1 game on Pro Tour Epson Restored champion Alexander Hayne, who's the last undefeated left in the field.
That is, in fact, correct. Hayne at 4-0, really putting on a show here. He was really one of the least experienced competitors. A lot of people were wondering, you know, how he would do, but he's really taking it to a lot of the veterans with a lot more top 8s and lifetime pro points than him.
So Ochoa plays a land, plays a fetch land, as a matter of fact. So he's going to try to get 2 landfall triggers and get in with the Step Links. Brian Kibler responds with Dismember.
Right, now he does fall to 12 life. The sack land going to take him for 11, but now he's able to start getting in with Colonnade, and that can kill Ochoa in just 4 attacks, and more if he starts using his sack lands aggressively. So Kibler needs to try and end this game as soon as he can.
Other report from the other back table, Ianaga has taken game 1 from Turtenwald, so he leads that match.
And Kibler activating his Colonnade. Ochoa trying to Snapcaster Mage his Path to Exile, but again, Kibler with the last card in his hand, a devastating Spell Snare, taking not only the 2-1 away, but keeping his Celestial Colonnade very much alive.
Yeah, he knows you can only play 4 of those, right?
And he's making use of all of those right now.
All right, so Kibler out of cards in his hand, which not the situation he certainly wants to be in. Ochoa with 2 left.
Interestingly, the Colonnade attacked. You think Ochoa would want to cast Snapcaster Mage before it attacked, so that if he had to tap it to Spell Snare, he would at least not be able to attack with a card. But it looks like that is not what happened, and Ochoa falls down to 9 life.
Kibler sitting at 11, so we are right in the middle of the life totals here. Ochoa untaps. Ochoa needs some action here, though. I mean, his creatures aren't all that spicy on their own.
Right.
And he's probably going to keep that fetch land and not use it until he's got a step links that he wants to attack with.
That's true. On the other hand, Ochoa's deck full of burn spells. Kibler at 11. Ochoa has 6 points of burn in hand. A Tribal Flames is lethal here from Ochoa. And the Lightning Helices are going to, it's so weird to say that word, Helices, are going to keep him alive past several Colonnade attacks. You know, each Helix almost gains him back the entire life of the attack. So really Ochoa, although he doesn't have a board, although Kibler's attacking every turn, Ochoa has a lot of outs right now.
Ochoa points the Lightning Helix at Kibler's head at end of turn and also cracks fetch land, so he drops to 7, Kibler to 8. That means he can only stand 2 more attacks from that Celestial Colonnade.
Right. Now, again, the second Helix, if it is able to resolve, will reduce the clock to 3 attacks. But you're absolutely right, Sheldon. He's got to produce a threat of his own very soon, or that Colonnade's just going to go the entire way.
Probably why Kibler Finkel playing the Colonnade in that deck.
And it's something that is hard to appreciate, especially if you haven't been playing Magic a long time. You know, 5 mana to get a 4/4/4 a turn, it doesn't really sound worth it. And it's certainly not something that you would be doing on turn 5. But a lot of games of Magic evolved to the state where you have nothing, your opponent really has nothing, and having something, even if it's as inefficient as Celestial Colonnade is, can be the difference between a win and a loss.
And that's the situation that we see here. We see right here in this game is that both hands are nearly empty. There's a Lightning Helix going toward Brian Kibler's head again, so that will drop him to 5, bring Ochoa up to 10.
And that is happening on Ochoa's main phase so that Kibler does not get to untap. Now, interestingly, he is not attacking with Colonnade this turn, telegraphing something because he has both Snapcaster Mage and Restoration Angel in his hand.
There's the Restoration Angel. It gets path to exiled. So there's another land for Kibler. I mean, more land for Kibler can only be good because it allows him to activate Celestial Colonnade and not have to tap it in case he needs to use the counter spells.
And that Snapcaster Mage providing a fair amount of insurance for the Colonnade right now, also protecting against Ochoa's attacks and just providing more of a clock. So Kibler, having drawn both Restoration Angel and Snapcaster Mage, in really, really good shape right now, given that the biggest threat to his life total is Tribal Flames, which Snapcaster Mage can deal with if cast targeting Spell Snare.
You draw.
And there's a Vendilion click from Brian Kibler. He's going to target David Ochoa.
He's going to take Ochoa's 4th Geist of Same Draft that we've seen this game. And really, in what has really been a long, drawn-out game of Modern from a deck ordinarily very fast like Zoo.
Yeah, both these decks don't tend to let the game go particularly long.
Go ahead.
Looking good for Kibler here with the click and the Colonnade. Ochoa can't block either of them.
Yeah, no, he's just got lethal right now. If Kibler attacks and Ochoa doesn't have a Path to Exile or a Bolt in his hand, and that is the game. Oh, but Kibler does not activate Colonnade.
Takes the conservative route.
Yeah, I can understand that with Snapcaster Mage in your hand. I think 2 copies of it, actually. You've got a loaded graveyard that can really handle anything Ochoa can throw at you.
Graveyard that we can't quite see, but I think we'll get sideline reporter Rashad Miller to slide that down so we can get it into the shot so you at home can see Brian's graveyard. He's going to Snapcaster Mage and Path to Exile the Step Links.
Right, and Kibler at 5 life points, but he's got another Snapcaster Mage for a Spell Snare, so he still doesn't have to be too scared of Tribal Flames. Now, obviously, presenting a more than lethal damage on the counterattack. If Ochoa doesn't show him something, the game's going to be over.
All right, Kibler on taps.
Make sure to randomize the deck for value. Draws his card. It's a Path to Exile, further clearing out any possible threats that might show up.
No flash creatures in Ochoa's deck, right?
There's
Snapcaster
Mage,
right? Which is a pretty big deal.
Yeah, it is a pretty big deal. Fortunately, Kibler, again, with his own Snapcaster targeting Spell Snare, can capitalize. He decides not to activate his Celestial Colonnade.
So, from somebody who's considered a relatively aggressive player, likes the red-green especially, this is a very conservative line of play from Brian Kibler.
Yeah, that is certainly true. I mean, and there you see it, right? I mean, Ochoa did have the Path to Exile, and Kibler didn't walk into it. So, you know, maybe he just had a read. Maybe he understands that if there's a card in Ochoa's land, especially given how many sack lands have been activated, it's probably not a land. It probably is something live. And, you know, holding up Snapcaster can take care of anything Ochoa can do. In a game of Magic, you are not obligated to win as fast as possible. You are obligated to win.
So, life totals stand at 5 apiece. Kibler, 2 cards in hand, Snapcaster Mage, and of course the all-important Celestial Colonnade on the battlefield. Ochoa 1 card, I believe, after that last path. And it's Tribal
Flames. But Kibler has the Snapcaster Mage, and that's going to be
game.
The match.
All right, Brian Kibler takes down game 1 from David Ochoa. A lot of action. There was a lot of stuff that happened in those games. I mean, if it was an online game, there would have been a lot of clicks.
If we were calculating clicks per minute, there would have been a lot of them that game. Yeah, I mean, in the Path to Exile and the early step links was devastating. That game just really preserved Kibler's life total to be high enough that his counter magic could take care of the burn spells, and he was able to finish off largely with points from Celestial Colonnade activation after Celestial Colonnade activation.
Zazzle lets you create a variety of products with Magic the Gathering images. There are dozens of classic and modern Magic images to choose from that can adorn everything from iPad and iPhone skins to greeting cards, posters, binders, stickers, and collectible stamps. For more information, visit www.wizards.com/magic merchandise. Sheldon Menery, Zach Hill in the booth. It's Studio A, Round 5, Magic Players Championship 2012, Seattle, Washington. Brian Kibler up a game on David Ochoa. What kind of sideboard action we're going to see, Zach?
If you're asking me, if I'm Kibler, I'm going to side out Remand and 2 copies of Dismember, probably for Kitchen Finks, Baneslayer Angel, Threads of Disloyalty. I'd probably take out 1 more card. Vendilion Click, not too exciting. I definitely want every copy of Threads that I can have. You probably bring in Phantasmal Image, too, in order to combat Geist of Saint Draft. And, you really have a lot of options. I think Kitchen Finks, Baneslayer are probably the most important cards, especially by virtue of the power of Path. I feel like Vendilion Click, a little bit weak. Remand doesn't do a lot. Cryptic Command, kind of expensive, and obviously Dismember is terrible in this matchup. So.
It did help him a little bit there.
It certainly, it did.
This is a trap. This is a trap I think less experienced Magic players fall into because a card is good situationally once.
Right.
They put a lot more value in it than it deserves.
Okay, and interestingly, because he's on the draw, he seems to be siding out Mana Leak and actually not taking out Dismember. Sometimes I guess you just need to get a threat off the table, and paying 4 is better than taking 12. Which I can certainly understand. I mean, Mana Leak is not going to do a whole lot against a deck full of 1-mana creatures, especially when you're on the draw.
We hear from the back table, the last undefeated has fallen. Shuhei Nakamura has taken down Alexander Hayne 2-0, so the field getting even more tightly bunched together.
Now, I think from Ochoa's side, because of Kibler's pass to Exile, because the game goes pretty long, I think you want Thrun the Last Troll. I think you want Elspeth. I think you want Lingering Souls, and maybe you want Mana Leak. In terms of what to side out, that's obviously a lot more challenging. I can see the argument for siding out Tarmogoyf because you don't want to just get blown out by Threads of Disloyalty. Your paths to Exile are really good, but I don't know that you want 4 of them. I don't know. It's a pretty hard puzzle to solve on Ochoa's side.
Does Ochoa have to land a 1-drop creature turn 1 in order to win this game?
Oh, yeah, I think so. I mean, especially given the fact that Kibler doesn't have any burn spells, any lightning bolts or burst lightnings. All he has is Path to Exile. I think you really want to stick a 1-mana creature. If you don't put the pressure up, Kibler's just going to bury you in the late game. Now, Kibler, interestingly, siding out Sword of War and Peace. I think he saw last game that all of his threats got killed And he just revealed to Ochoa that he's siding out Geist of St. Traft. I thought he would keep in Geist of St. Traft just to kill Ochoa's Geist of St. Traft. That could be a pretty big reveal if Ochoa was able to see that.
Yeah, we didn't have the shot of whether David Ochoa actually saw that card that was momentarily flipped up from Brian Kibler. If he did see it, there's some value to Kibler going back, starting putting cards back in.
Yeah.
So that there's some doubt.
I think if you're Ochoa, you really want Mana Leak right here. I mean, you're going to play a turn 1 threat, and you just can, like, ride that to victory as you keep Counterspell mana up. I think you want the late game cards. I might actually sideboard out my Tarmogoyfs. It is so bad for me if a Threads of Disloyalty resolves against that card. And you know Kibler has 4 Spell Snares. In fact, Kibler might... It's an interesting game for him because Spell Snare counters Helix and Tribal Flames, Snapcaster Mage, and Tarmogoyf, but it doesn't counter Ochoa's best draws, which are just 1-drop, 1-drop, 1-drop. So Ochoa might be siding out 2s to make Kibler's Spell Snares worse as well.
Ochoa has 10 1-drops in his deck. He's got 2 Loam Lions, 4 Curd Apes, 4 Step Links. He's probably going to aggressively mulligan into making sure that he has early pressure.
Yeah. The other thing he may have sided out were actually just Lightning Bolts. I mean, Bolt deals with Snapcaster Mage, but, Snapcaster Mage gets your value. It deals with Vendilion Click, which is hugely important. But Click doesn't really survive very much. Bolt doesn't deal with Kitchen Finks, really. Bolt doesn't deal with Restoration Angel, really. So Bolt is kind of a liability for Ochoa. That might be what he sides out to bring in some of those more expensive resilient cards.
On table B, we find out that Owen Turtenwald and Junya Ianaga have not in the match, 1 apiece. They're going to go to a game 3. Good shot of Brian Kibler right there.
What you guys don't see on the screen, but it's actually the greatest thing of all time, is this intense close-up shot we have of Ochoa's mustache.
Yeah, there it is.
One of the monitors in here. There it is. Oh,
all right,
yeah,
thank you
beautiful.
to our producer Bruce to make sure we got that image up. There's the little wax on the ends, the little upturn. So it's like he's constantly smiling.
It's like Daniel Day-Lewis from There Will Be Blood. Gangs of New York or something. I don't know. I think it's great.
Right,
and I will say that hat is bona fide.
There's really no other way to describe it, is it, Sheldon?
All right, players are drawing their opening hands. I think that's a 1-lander for Ocho.
That's no, I think it's an Arid Mesa and a Misty Rainforest.
Oh, yep, you're right.
He did keep it. He kept in both Tarmogoyf and Lightning Bolt. So this is what I get for speculating about what is going to happen in this match.
Kibler snap ships
I
his
think it
7.
was a 1-land or a 0-land or something. I saw a Spell Snare, which is exactly what you want on the draw. But apparently the rest of the hand was not good enough.
Sure it wasn't a 2 of?
I'm trying to think about what Ocho's plan is. I mean, unless like Lightning Bolt is like a bona fide lava spike, which to be fair, it could be, Tarmogoyf can be a liability. Tarmogoyf activates his Spell Snares. I don't know what you want to do. I mean, it's almost as though you want to sideboard like more 1-drops against decks with Spell Snare. That's probably really bad, but I could see it being a thing at least.
Is there any difference in Ochoa's plan in the line of play he's going to take with Kibler going to 6? Does he just Lightning Bolt his face early to get that early damage because he knows he's got fewer cards, he's going to have fewer threats to answer?
Sure. I mean, certainly, like, you don't want to cast Path to Exile if you can help it, because giving him that extra card might be the land he needs. Like when you're on 6 cards, obviously just getting, each land after like your first couple is just exponentially harder to get to. So you might be turning on his Restoration Angels. In general, though, I really don't think there's too much you can actually do differently based on the fact that your opponent mulligan. Your deck's designed to orchestrate a plan, and I think you kind of just have to follow that.
Okay, Kibler's hand has 2 land in it, Hallowed Fountain and a Tectonic Edge. He has decided to keep them. And Ochoa cracks a Misty Rainforest, dropping himself to 19 right away.
Cool, my meeting.
And I don't. Did we see a 1-drop in his hand? I mean, I think we saw a lightning bolt, but I don't know if we saw a creature.
I wouldn't imagine he would crack his land immediately, though, if he did not have a 1-drop permanent. I mean, the Stifle's not in this format. In Legacy, you see people waiting around with their sack lands so they don't get stifled, which can be just the biggest blowout in the universe. But it doesn't appear that Ochoa is doing that. I imagine he probably has a Loam Lion or a Step Lynx.
Well, there's the Temple Garden. He's going to put it into play untapped, which is going to cost him 2 more damage. And there indeed is the Loam Lion.
Yeah, now I saw the Curd Ape in his hand and thought that he might have just had a brain fart for a little bit and just got the wrong land, which would be massively awkward. But it's no, he does not. He has the Loam Lion, plays it, says go. Kibler sees his first card, yet another land. Now, playing Colonnade on turn 1 signals to Ochoa that the coast is clear for Tarmogoyf. Kibler doesn't really have a choice because he needs his 3rd mana on turn 3, but you do kind of wish you could at least represent a way to deal with one of your opponent's most powerful cards.
Yep. Ochoa is thinking. But there can't be any play other than Tarmogoyf here. He's going to crack another fetch land and drop himself to 16.
No, that's a.
And he's going to play the Curd Ape. Well, I guess the Curd Ape is less likely to get stolen.
I think that's exactly what it is. Like I feel like you want to just provide a lot of respect for Threads of Disloyalty right here. On the other hand, your opponent can't really cast it quickly. So this is what I was talking about with regard to Tarmogoyf. Your opponent didn't have Spell Stare mana up. If you're not going to cast Tarmogoyf, why is it in your deck? If you're not going to cast it on the 2nd turn of the game.
Tarmogoyf's only a 1/2 right here.
Yeah.
As opposed to the Curd Ape being a 2/3.
Yeah, I mean, Curd Ape gets you an additional point of damage, but I mean, it's not hard to turn that Tarmogoyf up. I mean, you just bolt your opponent's face if you need to, you know? I mean,
sure.
I just feel like you want to get it through Spell Snare while you can, or not just run it into Threads of Disloyalty like he's about to do right now.
Oh, Curd Ape number 2 from David Ochoa, and the pressure is getting pretty heavy.
That's true, and again, just not casting the Tarmogoyf. Kibler doesn't have a lot of good answers, right? He is forced to cast the Threads here. I guess Ochoa just expected that the Threads would have to come down regardless, so why bother? You know, I mean, a really good read by Ochoa. I mean, I certainly would have done it differently, and I'd be in a much worse situation right now. I mean, on the other hand, like, what happens if Kibler, Kibler has 2 Wrath of Gods. What happens if Kibler has a Wrath of God in his hand, just clicks you, takes away your biggest threats, takes some damage, sure, but then wraths the board and has a Thread still in his hand? I mean, do you still want the Tarmogoyf in your deck?
Another fetch land activation from Ochoa. We'll drop him to 13. All 7 points he's done to himself.
Right. Now, Kibler's Curd Ape, only a 1/1, not doing nearly as much work as the Loam Lion and the Curd Ape on the other side of the table.
It's there as basically a damage prevention method at this point. Here we see Blood Crypt from David Ochoa.
I'm still just kind of confused, though, because, like, you don't have your Spell Snare up for the Tarmogoyf that Ochoa's casting. Your Curd Ape's a 1/1, so it's not going to meaningfully block. So really all you did was cast, like, an extremely bad Dark Banishing right now. And you had to tap out to do it, turning off your Spell Snare for a card like Tarmogoyf. I just don't think you cast it. And if you want to cast a Dark Banishing, you use your Vendilion Click during combat and keep that Threads of Disloyalty in your hand.
Okay, there he's blocking with his Curd Ape. So he's going to take 2, taking him down to 12. Curd Ape's going to die, go back to Ochoa's graveyard. And he just passes. Is he really worried about the Wrath of God? Is he just doesn't want to overcommit? He's going to go, look, I got 4 powers of guys on the board. You got to do something about it.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe it's the other threads. I don't know. A lot of this game isn't making sense to me. Like, yeah, I mean, now Kibler can click him. I understand not. It just the Tarmogoyf is weird to me.
The fact that he would keep it in and then be shy about playing it.
Right. I mean, you know, and I get, okay, like you're just going to, you know, no one's making you win the game fast. I understand that. But now you're going to get clicked. It's going to dark banish one of your guys. It's going to take whatever your biggest threat is.
I'll target.
Yeah.
Is he playing, does he have Mana Leak?
Ocho certainly doesn't have it in his hand. He does have Lightning Bolt, but the ability is still going to resolve. Kibler on 12, so I mean he's taking a fair amount of damage right here. Oh, Thrun the last troll and Elspeth.
That's a pretty spicy hand there for David
That's
Ochoa.
a very spicy hand for David Ochoa. I have no idea what I take, if anything, with Click right now. I guess probably Snapcaster Mage because I don't want the burn hitting me, and he can't cast the other
how about the
spells.
Thrun because you just lose to it?
All of them.
That's certainly viable, but Kibler does not take any of the cards. I think your plan just has to be that he doesn't cast Thrun. You don't want him to get an extra land. I think you're going to try and figure out a way to connect with that Sword of Warren piece. You know, he has another Vendilion Click, and that card can get him right back in the game if he's able to equip Sword to it.
So Brian Kibler's hand does have Sword of War and Peace. It has Vendilion Click. It has, is that a Spell Pierce?
Yeah, it is a Spell Pierce. Yeah, and you're kind of daring him to cast Tarmogoyf right here by not taking it. It's the one threat that he can cast meaningfully right now. I think Kibler is doing some mind games, bluffing either the Wrath of God or another Threads by just saying, okay, sure, cast Tarmogoyf.
Right.
I mean, you know, he can Spell Snare it, but he doesn't want to take 3 damage. Ocho takes the bait. I mean, by bait, I mean the imaginary bait.
Well, that's the problem. You know, the problem with a bluff
Right.
is when it gets called, your pants are down.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, Arid Mesa getting Hallowed Fountain.
Well,
Very
but
devastating.
again,
for Kibler.
that gets Kibler basically bolting himself.
Right. Right. Precisely.
He is down to 5.
And he knows Ocho has Snapcaster Mage for Lightning Bolts. I mean, Kibler is really in bad shape right now.
Unless he's sided in one of those life gainers, he's in really rough shape.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly he might hope to have a Kitchen Finks.
Yeah, he
come
wants
up.
Kitchen Finks or Baneslayer right now. I guess he doesn't have a land in hand for Baneslayer. Okay, awkwardly drew. Oh, he does have. He has a tech edge for Baneslayer, so. I mean, he's. Yeah, I mean, he just knows he's dead, right? Or no, he can main phase Vendilion Click away the Snapcaster Mage. Keep the Snapcaster Mage away so he can't get bolted. That allows Ocho to play Elspeth or Thrun if he draws a land, but does keep him alive from a turn, and that's exactly what Kibler does.
Results.
Sure, obviously, take Snapcaster, etc.
All right, Zach Hill has sussed out the line of play about the same time that Brian Kibler did, it seems, and there's a go. You just battle in here if you're Ochoa, though,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, of course. Oh, and you got your 4th land. I mean, you probably Elspeth make a guy, to be honest with you. Like, you just attack, blow up his Vendilion Click. Maybe play Thrun. I don't like Thrun, though, because of Baneslayer Angel. I like Elspeth just making guys.
The lone
He
line?
chooses to block
The lone line?
lone line is instead of the Curd Ape.
To the extent that makes a difference. No, I was going to say because of the sword, but the sword has protection from both those cards. Yeah, maybe you do just cast Thrun here.
Yeah, he's got a Wrath or it's Wrath or Die.
Yeah. Okay. He's got the Kitchen Finks. I mean, he's staying alive.
Yes, by the skin of his teeth, Brian Kibler. I mean, he's shown both his deck here and as a player a remarkable resiliency. We saw that in the cube round. He just kept coming on and staying in the game until he could actually turn it around and win it.
So, I mean, Kibler's out, I guess, just is Baneslayer Angel right now. He's at 5, so he can take 1 hit from Thrun. He's going to chump block Thrun, I have to imagine. The Persist from Kitchen Finks takes him to 7, which can allow him to equip the Sword of Warren piece, which can take him back up to 9. Hanging on by the skin of his teeth.
Path to Exile. That's a good tech edge. He strips the Temple Garden.
Sure, so Elspeth just not coming down anytime soon. Okay, and but that is the Snapcaster Mage. So this attack is from
He's going to be.
Kibler's going to be
He's
lethal.
going to be.
You just put the persist trigger on the stack or the ETB trigger on the stack after the damage has been dealt and just bolt him.
I'll block out.
Kibler, of course, doesn't know that, so he has to play for his outs.
Sure. You take 4.
Yep.
The trigger on the stack.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happens.
There it is. All right, David Ochoa takes game 2 from Brian Kibler. So we're going to go to an exciting game 3 here in round 5, Magic Players Championship 2012.
You know what I'm doing.
David Ochoa on the right, you see there, good sweeping shot. There's Nate Holt in the background. Magic Rules Manager Matt Tabak with the headset on and clipboard. Brian Kibler, of course, on the left. Anything coming from Kibler out of the sideboard being on the play?
Well, I think the Wrath's become much better on the play. Now, he brings in 1, just like the giant miser that he is. Siding out Sword of War and Peace, very expensive and reliant upon having a creature into play. I tend to agree with that. I understand why he doesn't want 2 Wrath of Gods because, you know, Ochoa has a lot of burn and a lot of range, and the redundant copies are very bad. On the other hand, like, he doesn't have any counter magic to stop Ochoa's burn beyond the spell snares, so... which, to be fair, I guess stop the most important burn spells. But as you saw in that game, Lightning Bolt, Snapcaster plus Lightning Bolt can go a lot of the way. I guess that's one of the reasons Ochoa left them in. They make his Snapcaster mages a lot better.
It's very strange.
Looking to face a greater challenge? Take your game to a Grand Prix and see how you fare against the best players in your region, as well as top visiting Magic pros. Upcoming Grand Prix include Costa Rica, Moscow, San Jose, California, and Philadelphia. For more information, visit www.wizards.com/Grand Prix. You going to any of those?
I would like to. I certainly hope so.
I'm definitely going to the one in San Jose. That team event is going to be really, really spicy. I'm on tap to broadcast from that one. You know, Philadelphia is a city that I don't mind going to. You know, the venue downtown right next to that nice Reading Market.
Yeah, I've played a few events there.
Lunch is always great. Of course, we're here in Seattle. We're right across the street from Pike's Place Market, where you can also get a pretty fair lunch.
Not too bad. I live like 3 blocks away from here, and it's pretty easy to eat very well.
So, do you get bored with like all these really nice choices around you? You're like,
really difficult life. What fresh market food do I want to eat today for an absurdly low price? Yeah, it's a terrible life. So,
all right, so we're gonna go to game 3. There's Brian Kibler on the left, David Ochoa on the right. Currently shuffling up each other's decks, and they will be drawing their opening hands momentarily.
Kibler may have known this, but you have to think in last game, seeing the Thrun the Last Troll and Elspeth stranded in Ochoa's hand, he had knowing that your opponent's plan is to try and go over the top of you is very valuable. And he probably had suspicions that that's what was going on. I'm sure he did. He tested it. But knowing that that's what your opponent's sideboard plan is really puts you in much better shape for game 3.
Which means he may indeed, well, like we saw him do, bring in the Wrath of God.
Right.
I mean, Wrath of God's the only thing that's going to take care of that Thrun.
Yeah, hilariously, yeah, right. The can't be regenerated clause, very relevant against specifically Thrun the Last Troll.
All right. Scalding Tarn for Brian Kibler on turn 1. A Blood Crypt into play tapped for Ochoa that brings in Curd Ape.
Currently a 1/1 Curd Ape.
I have a feeling it's not going to be 1/1 for long.
I can't imagine why.
Brian Kibler cracks his fetch land and gets Hallowed Fountain. Was the terminology cracking a fetch land something you used in playtesting? In
of
Future League?
course. Well, yeah, especially in a format like this where like there's a lot of value to keeping your fetch lands around. But yeah, that was back in Onslaught, so we kind of kept it around. You know what I'm saying?
There we see that Tribal Flames and
Check.
Path to Exile.
Just before damage.
Right, and Ochoa remembers to go get a forest. Kind of an old player trick. You're just like, yeah, all right, 19.
Yeah. he
Temple Garden tapped.
activates his Arid Mesa.
You see those mana leaks that we talked about post-board. Really valuable in a match like this where Kibler is dependent on so many 3 and 4 mana spells. Ocho puts the Temple Garden into play tapped, saving himself 2 life points, again holding Tarmogoyf, again holding Tribal Flames.
Oh, early Kitchen Finks is a little more problematic for David Ochoa than a late one.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, it pairs up exactly as you want it to with Kurt Ape and Loam Lion. Obviously, against Step Links, it's still a little bit too small, but, I mean, Kibler in very good shape right now.
Okay, that life gain takes Kibler back up to 19. And, there's no place for the Kurt Ape to really attack into.
Right, and even if Ochoa has a Path to Exile right now, it's very good for Kibler. With a grip full of cards, one of them being Cryptic Command, he can really make use of the extra lands.
There is the Path to Exile on Kitchen Finks from David Ochoa, so Brian Kibler will get an island. That puts him on mana for Cryptic Command.
Right.
Also puts him on, well, he's already on mana for Wrath of God.
Precisely.
Now, Ochoa's got a lot of things in his hand. He's got a Tarmogoyf, he's got a Misty Rainforest, we see. So he could cast the Tarmogoyf here. At a certain point, you can't be afraid of the cards your opponent has. Right. You still have to run your game plan.
No, that's absolutely right. I mean, the downside is that Kibler is 17. I mean, Ochoa just has a lot of cards. His hands just do not do anything. I mean, like Tribal Flames, okay, that's 5 damage. You've got me down to 12. Now what? I'm never going to have to take 2 mana from a Ravnica land ever again because I've got so many lands in play. I mean, Kibler, at the point in which he can afford to burn Threads of Disloyalty on Kurt Ape, he's basically won the game. I mean, Ochoa has Snapcaster Mage, which also isn't really doing very much of anything right now. The only card it can get back is a burn spell with Kibler at a huge life total, or and he's main phasing the Tribal Flames, but he doesn't have much of a board presence right now.
There we see the Tribal Flames for 5, takes Brian Kibler down to 12.
And like, all of this is cute, but Kibler is going to have Mana Leak mana up. Next turn he's going to be able, Cryptic Command mana up. He can play Tectonic Edge if he wants to. He threads with 2 open. Ochoa can cast Tarmogoyf, but he really just doesn't have very much right now, and Kibler's going to untap with Cryptic Command in his hand.
That Tarmogoyf would be 3/4 at the moment. You see an instant, a sorcery, and a land in the graveyard.
Really slick play is after he says, okay, I'll cast this Tarmogoyf, Cryptic Command your Threads of Disloyalty,
right.
And say, all right, thank you for a Tarmogoyf.
Looks like a 3/4. Got sorcery.
All right, looks like Brian Kibler in the driver's seat in the early part of this match. Like we were talking about the Rug Delver deck, this Zoo deck really doesn't have a heck of a lot of comeback capability.
No, it doesn't. I mean, it's got a lot of range, which is the ability to send burn directly at your opponent's face with getting him down to 12 with Snapcaster Mage, Tribal Flames, and additional Tribal Flames. I really like the play of just blocking here and bouncing my Threads with Cryptic Command. So the Zoo deck, not that much comeback capability, a reasonable amount of ability to just go for the face. Ochoa does top deck Lingering Souls, which, gives him a fairly substantive board presence right here.
Okay, 3/4 Tarmogoyf coming in, getting blocked as predicted.
Threads and draw card.
Cryptic Command targeting the Threads for a bounce, and we're going to assume draw a card.
That's what I would guess. It's not awful to bounce a land here, deal Ochoa some extra damage, and prevent him from casting 2 threats this turn. But I think you just want an extra card. Now, Ochoa, lightning bolting the Kurt Ape in response. Oh, and that is a blowout. Kibler not even able to draw a card off the Cryptic Command.
That's right, because Cryptic Command only has 1 target in this situation. If that target it's illegal when it goes resolved, the whole spell is countered.
Right, now Kibler not in terribly good shape right now. Of course, well, I said that, and then he drew a Snapcaster Mage for the Cryptic Command. But that was a pretty huge lightning bolt from Ochoa. Kibler's got to be wondering where some of his expensive sideboard cards are to help him right now.
I do.
Okay, he plays a Tectonic Edge. Can't imagine he's not going to use it.
I've got to say, I didn't really like threadsing the Kurt Ape.
Go ahead.
I think they're just keeping, what is he going to do? Attack you for 2 a turn? Okay, great. Keep Cryptic Command mana open to cast Dismiss. And then just, what's he going to do? Hold his Tarmogoyf in his hand the entire game? I feel like the play with the Threads was cute, but just don't cast it in the first place and take 2 a turn and just assemble your deck and keep Dismiss open. I mean, it's worth it to me to pay 2 life to not have to give the opponent one of these giant threats that they have. And we're really seeing him pay for that right here.
That threads of disloyalty going to the graveyard also makes the Tarmogoyf one bigger.
Yeah.
Okay, into the red zone with the Loam Line and the Tarmogoyf. Snapcaster Mage flashing in, targeting Cryptic Command.
And do you just like, do you activate Mutavault here and double block Loam Lion? Do you keep Cryptic Command up just until the end of the turn so you can, oh, well. No, he bounces it on his on the attack. I guess he just does not want to take the damage.
And he's going to murder the Loam Lion as well with the Snapcaster, I would assume.
Well, the Loam Lion's a 2/3, right?
Yep.
Oh, that's true.
10 life.
Like, it would be nice if his tech edges were active, but currently they're not. He is keeping the Snapcaster on the table to team up with a Mutavault eventually. But Ochoa's hand's pretty loaded right now.
That Cryptic Command takes, I'm sorry, that Loam Line attack takes Brian Kibler down to 10. Ochoa's still standing at 14.
Kibler drew Baneslayer Angel, which is huge right now. Path to Exile in Ochoa's graveyard for the Snapcaster Mage, so Kibler can't just run it out there, but if he can exhaust that Snapcaster Mage or draw some insurance against the Path to Exile, that Baneslayer Angel will win him this game.
Creatures. 5/6 then?
Yeah, even one or two hits with it is significant. Kibler asking there what exactly is in David Ochoa's graveyard. Obviously, he knows that Ochoa is playing that Snapcaster Mage.
Do you try and just use your man lands to get that Tarmogoyf off the board here? I mean, you've got a Mutavault and you've got a 4/4, which are not exactly small creatures. And if you can bait him into trying to 2-for-1 you know, off the double block with the Path to Exile, that clears the room for that Baneslayer Angel. Kibler just playing more and more lands. Oh, and it just runs it out there. I guess he has to say, okay, well, if you have the Snapcaster Mage or another path, I guess you have it.
Yep.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Just saw Ochoa take good long drink of his bottled water there. A little energy, a little brain power.
Okay,
There's
he's just going to path it from his hand. Yeah. Kibler not in good shape right now. Again, I really do not like Threads of Disloyalty the Curd Ape. I mean, Threads is not in your deck to act as a bad Dark Banishing and give you a 1/1. I think you have to play for your cards to have a little bit more potential than that.
Also surprised that Tectonic Edge has not done its work.
Well, the Tech Edge can't, right? He's got
he only has
4
3
lands
lands,
in
that's
play.
right.
Yeah, as many lands as Kibler has. Ochoa, not quite so many on his side of the table, and really a commanding board presence for Ochoa right now.
Right. So Tarmogoyf and Loam Line getting in. David Ochoa leaning back, looking at the clock there.
I mean, just without that Baneslayer Angel, there's not a whole lot of comeback potential in Kibler's deck with Tarmogoyf on the board. I mean,
yeah, he's going to activate the Mutavault.
Sure, you can.
He's just chump blocking 2. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Double blocking the Loam Line.
Go ahead and order.
All right. Now, yeah, I mean, yeah, we're just trying to Ocho trying to decide whether he wants to burn one of his removal spells on this double block. I imagine he's just going to say, okay, whatever. Get rid of your Mutavault and take a ton of damage from Tarmogoyf.
Pass before damage.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 from the Mutavault.
From the Tarmogoyf?
I mean, from the Tarmogoyf?
Yeah, that's what it looks like. Kibler not in good shape right now. I mean, it's kind of just a matter of time at this point.
Okay, Kibler drops to 5. He is 1 hit from that Tarmogoyf away. David Ochoa standing at 14. Kibler only 2 cards in his hand. David Ochoa has plenty in his. That can mean burn, you know, a Lightning Helix, or a second Tarmogoyf. That seems okay.
Yeah, what I thought earlier was a Lingering Souls is actually just another Path to Exile. So, I mean, it seems very, very hard for Ochoa to lose this game. Iganjo Castle. Now, I mean, Kibler's pretty mana flooded, but it seems like there are ways to pull this out. I mean, he's going to activate his man lands and try and create blocks, but there's just not a whole lot. I mean, especially with the path from Ochoa, this game is pretty much over at this point.
Here come both Tarmogoyfs in. Kibler's going to activate Celestial Colonnade. Now, of course, that ability is going to resolve, and Ochoa is going to have priority before blockers are declared.
That's exactly right. I can't think of a reason not to cast Path right here.
cast path and kills him.
Yeah, right, exactly. I mean,
So
I
that's
guess,
that seems a pretty good reason to cast it.
yeah.
There it is.
Yeah,
There's the handshake.
that's
David
the hand.
Ochoa has taken down Brian Kibler 2-1 in round 5 action. Magic Players Championship 2012 in Seattle, Washington. Here we are back in the booth. I'm Sheldon Menery. This is Zach Hill. We just brought you all the exciting action from round 5, and we are going to kick it right away over into Studio B with Rich Hagon and or Marshall Sutcliffe.
Hey, thanks, Sheldon. Marshall Sutcliffe back here at the news desk. That was round 5. That thing's in the books. We've got one more round today of Modern. Let's take a quick look at the scoreboard just to see what's going on. Shota Yasoka 4-1, and there's one other 4-1 currently. Alexander Hayne, actually there's 2 others. Alexander Hayne from Canada still putting up big results against this stacked field, and Shuhei Nakamura also at 4-1. So 2 of the Japanese players sitting at 4-1, and Junya Naga not far behind at 3-2 as well. We're going to be bringing you more match coverage, but first, a Modern deck tech with my favorite deck, and this is going to be presented by Alexander Hayne and Zach Hill. Let's take it there now.
Hi, welcome to the Tournament Center. I'm Zach Hill, here with Pro Tour Avacyn Restored champion, Alexander Hayne. Now, Alex, we're looking at a Rug Delver deck right here.
Yeah.
Fairly straightforward list. How'd you decide that this is what you wanted to play at the tournament today?
Well, from the Modern I played, I didn't really think there's any way you can break the format at the moment.
Oh, yeah?
And just wanted to play something solid that I was comfortable with and had game against everything.
Sure.
And I find this is a deck that I've had experience with playing this deck and deck similar to it, and it's just a very solid deck.
Sure, you don't think you have a lot of bad matchups. You think you
Right.
can basically handle anything?
I think you can definitely handle anything. I mean, there's a little bit of metagaming, say, with the sideboard, and
Sure.
but most of the matchups I feel comfortable playing against.
Cool. So for people that are unfamiliar with the deck, let's just sort of walk through what it does.
Sure.
In terms of threats, you've got 4 Delver of Secrets, 4 Snapcaster Mage, 4 Tarmogoyf, and a Vendilion Click also on top of all that. This is sort of the core of the deck. Can you kind of explain how it works and why it's so powerful?
Well, I mean, I don't think people who've been playing Magic lately will be unfamiliar with Delver of Secrets.
Of course.
But in a deck, blue aggressive deck with a bunch of tons of instants and sorceries, it'll flip fairly early, and you get your clock on, and then you usually protect it with counterspells. That's the main purpose of this deck. It's a pretty standard aggro control deck.
Sure.
You want to get a clock, plus you have disruption. And you can also play both aggressive and controller's route. Tarmogoyf's just a big guy. It's a secret blue card. And Snapcaster, of course, and Snapcaster Delver, best buds.
Yeah, naturally. They're even wizards. So,
Yeah, they are.
they tell you to play them together.
Exactly, and Vendilion Clique is also just very good with this type of strategy because you don't really ever have to tap out, and you can see their hand, what's going on, and get rid of something. There's also the Grim Lavamancer.
Oh, yeah.
Which is Lucas's addition from after he got second at GP Columbus with the deck. He wanted to play that with the increase of the Birthing Pod decks to kill off mana accelerants particularly.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you just dump between the sack lands and the cantrips, you can load up your graveyard and just kind of take out a mana accelerant every turn.
Yeah.
Sure. So you were talking about how you want to deploy a threat and then start countering a lot of their spells. I'm taking a look at your counter magic. You've got 2 copies of Spell Pierce, 2 Deprive, 3 Mana Leak, 2 Spell Snare, 2 Cryptic Command. Now, that's kind of an eclectic assortment of counters. How did you arrive at that mix?
Well, basically the mix makes it harder for them to play around any particular card. You want only, you can't play so many counter spells. Like you can't play 4 Cryptics because they're too expensive, even though they're obviously when you have 4 mana, it's the best one.
Right.
And you don't want to play too many Deprives because it sets you back. And but you want to have a hard counter, so you don't want to just play all Mana Leaks.
Oh, okay.
And this is what Lucas had come up with for Columbus, and I think based upon what Antonio da Rosa played in Turin, I believe.
Yeah.
And it just works very well. You have the mix, and it's very hard for them to play around different stuff. I had a match where my opponent was playing spells, playing around spell pierce, and I'd spell snare him, and then he would play around spell snare, and I'd spell pierce him, and
right.
stuff. And, it just makes it hard. You're very unpredictable, and with Snapcaster having a mix of different spells that you have access to in your graveyard is an advantage, because then you can choose whichever one's best for the moment.
Right, so, and you know what your plan is, but they don't, so you can exploit that information difference. Now, you're talking about filling up your graveyard. I notice standard staple Thought Scour, one of the cards there to just sort of machine gun through your deck. Also, three Serum Visions and a single Gitaxian Probe. Is this more just diversity for Snapcaster Mage, or is there a method to the madness?
A little bit. This is probably the worst card in the deck. It's
really?
Yeah. It's certainly no Preordain or Ponder. With all the fetch lands, you're often shuffling back the cards you put on the bottom later, anyways.
Oh, okay.
It's really kind of a necessary evil just to set up Delvers. This slot used to be Sleight of Hand, but there's one less Vendilion Clique for the Grim Lavamancer, so you often want to see their hand to know what's up, so you can know if you can deploy another threat or if you need to keep back on counter magic.
Right.
Also, it allows Snapcaster to come down turn 2, draw your card.
Just go ahead and start gaining advantage.
Right, and Thought Scour might be better cantrip because it feeds Snapcaster and it lets you play Snapcaster end of turn for some value. But it also grows your Tarmogoyfs.
Right.
Often surprisingly so, they're not expecting in combat.
Yeah, you can play it kind of like a giant growth, right?
Yeah, or if they play use the Relic of Progenitus, you can suddenly refill. And it's very good.
That's slick. So the kind of linchpin, obviously, you've got one Vapor Snag to kind of mise with too. Yeah. What seems to sort of cement the late game are these 2 Vedalken Shackles that can serve as your creature control along with Lavamancer, Lightning Bolt, and Electrolyze, which I'll get to in a minute. How important is Vedalken Shackles to this deck's plan?
It's pretty important. It's one of your biggest late game threats. Like when you're taking the control role, it's one of your main ways to win. Just after trading 1-for-1 with them, and then you have a Shackles and you stabilize. And against Affinity, it's your only way really to answer Etch Champion.
Oh, okay. Oh, because it doesn't have a color.
Right, exactly.
That's really cool. So my favorite card in the list, I've got to say, is the Miser's Electrolyze.
Yeah.
I mean, if I put it in a deck, it would be because I just want to feel good when I get them.
Oh, yeah.
Presumably you just have a better reason than that. Why Electrolyze specifically as the 5th burn spell?
I mean, again, there's lots of mana dorks around in the format.
Okay.
And sometimes there's also decks that don't really care about a removal spell.
Sure.
So you want to just be able to go to the face and draw a card.
Right.
And obviously you can get them, but again, it just gives you more options with a bunch of card draw and Thought Scours and Snapcasters. It's always good to have options, and other people are playing some people are playing Burst Lightning and stuff, but I try the Electrolyze and I like it a lot. It's also definitely one of the most fun cards you can play.
I approve of the choice. Well, cool. So that takes us through the spells. We're looking at the mana base. You've obviously got Misty Rainforest, Arid Mesa, Scalding Tarn to go into Breeding Pools, Steam Vents, Stomping Ground. We see that in Modern a lot. It's kind of the core of the format. 6 islands, Mountain Forest. I am intrigued, with Vedalken Shackles in the deck, it does seem like you have 3 non-island lands. Does that ever pose a problem, or because you have so many islands, you can kind of afford to?
Right, you have a lot of islands, and of course your fetch lands can all find islands. So you generally have enough islands. You don't have to steal that many big creatures often. And Shackles, since you only have 2, usually it comes down later when you have, say, 5 mana. You'll play it and use it right away, and so you'll usually have enough lands. It's important to have basics that you can fetch, first of all, so you don't take too much damage against the aggressive decks, but also against cards such as Blood Moon or whatever. Yeah,
of course. Yeah, you definitely want that forest to be able to still cast your Tarmogoyfs and not have them stranded in your hand. All right, so now let's take a look at the sideboard. Much like the main deck, we've got a lot of sort of eclectic 1 and 2 ofs.
Right.
We've got cards, obviously, you see all the time. Ancient Grudge for the Affinity matchup, sometimes against Tron, just anything with artifacts, you're probably boarding it in. Explain the Combusts to me. Is that directed at a specific card?
It's especially mainly against Splinter Twin combo. So with Deceiver Exarchs and Pestermites, when the Kiki-Jiki or Splinter Twin them up. Also, the pod decks tend to play Restoration Angels and often Deceiver Exarch now too to combo with Kiki-Jiki. It's not bad against those, and it's good against the blue-white angel decks like Tsuchin Quo played at World Magic Cup, and also against the blue, red, white versions of Delver, you can kill Delvers and step lynxes if you need to. So it's just all around fairly good against blue and white creatures. But it's mainly when people are trying to combo off and do something unfair. And
cool.
They're backing it up with counter magic or something, and you just want to stop them.
Awesome. Well, continuing the kind of the standard card explosion off of Snapcaster and Delver, we've got another pillar of the standard format here with Huntmaster of the Fells. What is this guy good against, and why do you want 3 copies of it?
He's good against the aggressive decks and like the mid-range decks.
Sure.
Say Jund, for instance, or he's solid in the mirror match against blue, red, white Delver as well. Just the fact he gives you some life and multiple bodies for 1 card is good, and he provides a threat that basically they need to have multiple cards to deal with, and sort of pulls you back in when you're trying to play the more controlling role.
Yeah, sure. All right, so we've got negates. These kind of complement the spell pierces. Can't really play around them. Right. Got fire spout to sweep the board. I'm assuming Grafdigger's Cage is against Storm and Birthing Pod. Yeah. Prevent the graveyard. The surgical extraction, and another Miser's one-of as you're chaining through your deck. And I guess Pithing Needle for what? More Birthing Pod or something else?
Yeah, Pod. It's good against Karn or Eye of Ujin.
Oh, sure.
Especially since normally this deck plays like 3 Sowing Salts, for instance, against the Tron matchup, which is hard. And I've kind of given up that matchup a bit because I don't expect it to be played very much in the tournament.
Okay.
But Needle's just good against them, and it's just also has a variety of roles it can go in against. Something I don't expect, I can board it in. Say if someone's playing like Gideon, for instance, but you can name Birthing Pod or Karn or even Deceiver Exarch and Splinter Twin, because then if they have a Splinter Twin,
it counters
or
the
Kinky Jiki or
granted activated ability.
Right.
Oh, that's cool. And finally, a card that we talked about before you came on camera. Again, probably my favorite card in the entire 75, if it's not Electrolyze. The singleton copy of Threads of Disloyalty.
Right.
Why, you can't tutor for it, you can't get a deck with Snapcaster Mage. Why did we decide to go with that?
Well, so if you scour yourself, you can get an enchantment in the graveyard for no, but it's,
genius.
It's really
high-level magic.
Obviously, it's mainly to steal opposing Tarmogoyfs, but also can steal Spellskites and other powerful 2-drops like maybe Dark Confident. But you don't want to play too many, because then they can change their strategy against and react to that and board out their 2-drops. Whereas if they board out their 2-drops, then your deck is just, their deck is worse, and you have 1 dead card, but which is the most you're going to have. Whereas, it's just very good when you do draw it, like many of the Misers.
All right, well, that takes us through the deck. Pro Tour Avacyn Restored Champion Alexander Hayne representing Canada. Really awesome looking Rug Delver deck. Good luck at the tournament.
Thank you.
I'm Zach Hill. We're here at the Tournament Center for the Magic Players Championship. We've got a lot of Magic to watch, so stay tuned.
Desk. My name is Marshall Sutcliffe. Let's take a quick look here. A few happenings. We see that Josh Utter-Layton has gotten his first victory. He is underway here. You'll notice that Luis Scott Vargas is now 3-2. He started 0-2, so three in a row for Luis. So he is now on the comeback trail. We're going to see how he can do there. But let's take a look at our leaders. We have Alexander Hayne sitting at 4-1, Shuhei Nakamura sitting at 4-1, and Shota Yasuoka sitting at 4-1. Who is going to lead this thing overnight? Let's find out. Round 6, Player Championship.